Well, welcome. Thank you, Hans, for joining us.
You bet.
Instead of going through a long introduction, I would love to introduce you as a friend. You were introduced to me through a common friend based out of Europe. And the introduction was such that I was intrigued to learn more about the opportunity. And when I say opportunity, it's truly an opportunity because I've never heard about film finance treated like that. I mean, there is an aspect of rather than focusing on the success of the venture, post production, you're looking at pre-sale contractual receivable, insurance, completion bond, disciplined capital protection for the investor. So I was intrigued because I live in that world of family offices and family businesses who are continuously thinking of movies and media as a fun project, something that you don't make money, but you create a lot of buzz around Thanksgiving, New Year, and obviously any family gathering. So over to you, Hans. Thank you so much for joining me, and I would love to learn more about the origin story of Hans.
Oh, thank you. I was born and raised in Europe, moved here in 1990, and
Mhm.
I've done a whole lot of different things. But part of that journey has been a lot of work in media and production. And because of that, I can look at a budget and know whether it makes sense or not. And that's one of the reasons why I was asked to do what I'm doing now. But as far as the fund goes, from our perspective, we understand that the movie industry is very flashy, for lack of a better term. And a lot of people kind of like that splash that it makes. But for a lot of financial institutions and the average investor out there, it's a little scary because the way it's typically done is you, for the most part, are not going to make money. Or if you
Yes.
do, you're like the last in line and you might make a little bit, but you can have your name in the credits as a producer, an executive producer. And that's fine. From our perspective, we have no interest in the whole flashy part of the business. For us,
Mhm.
we wanted to make it boring but dependable source of income, which seems like an oxymoron, but
Yeah.
that was kind of the concept behind what we're doing. So I came across our mutual friend and then another friend that we both have who approached me about this project. And I was intrigued, not for all of the reasons that you are, but I love the idea that the production companies that work with us have a stable source of funding that they know they can go to for
Mm.
their projects. And that gives them the power to negotiate on the front end, to get the talent lined up, to get locations lined up, all of this stuff that you really have a hard time doing if you don't have the funding lined up. And they're able to pre-negotiate. And on the flip side, we know that we have a steady supply of productions that are waiting in the pipeline and we can turn funds over rapidly. But I know people that are listening to this right now, they're going to think like some of this stuff makes sense, some of this doesn't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
go ahead, and if you have specific questions and maybe drill down on parts of this, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Well, from my perspective, and I look at it based on the conversations that I have with family businesses and family offices, three things stood out. Number one, I'm intrigued to know how do you preserve the capital, like from an investor point of view. So if I'm an investor, I give you money. Generally, this is how the process works. I give you the money. I got intrigued by the storyline, obviously, and in some cases, actors. I have a crush on some celebrity actor or actresses, and then I think about, you know what, this I want to associate myself with this team, this actor, the success. And then my friends and family will clap, and and I'll be this superstar investor who's invested in this movie, right? That's one thing I never ever think about, that I will actually make a lot of money out of. I've never thought that I will make money investing in movies. That's just me. Based on the conversations, I've realized that people have invested for passionate reasons. Either they want to tell their story, a certain story aligned with their ethics, their vision, their business, or their origin story, right? And then nothing happens, right? So they keep walking around with the story. It's like a book, right? If you don't have a proper marketing and everything, you don't make money. But from your perspective, there is a capital preservation angle. Talk more about that.
Sure. For us, it's really about using the way that the entertainment industry works. And it has certain quirks that other industries don't, that you can actually tap into. And what we do is not new at all. We're
Mm,
just making it into a system in a way that nobody's done before, certainly not in the context of a fund.
Hmm.
But the idea for us is if we're going to be involved in a production, we do not want to be dependent on this thing being a hit. The bottom line for what we do from an investment kind of technical perspective is we do not ever come into a film production with an equity position. We always take a debt position. So when money comes into the production, we get paid first. And we're also the sole creditor. So,
Got it. So when the repayment comes back,
right,
it goes back to the fund
right,
and then flows back to the investor. Is that
correct.
make
But our
sense?
main concern is rule one is don't lose money.
Yes.
So in the film industry, it's famously very up and down. A lot of people have lost a lot of money. A lot of those
Yeah.
people are also people that took an equity position. And it could have been just like you said, they want an executive producer credit on the movie and they want to be able to tell their friends that, they were a producer on this movie and hopefully it does good. But ultimately, at that point, it's in the hands of the talent. And sometimes there's egos and things can go wrong. And production is not easy. There's a lot of things that
Hmm.
can happen. So from our perspective, we're looking at this saying, okay, well, what are the things that need to be in place for this to make sense for us, right? For us as a fund, because we want to make this boring, meaning we want it to be dependable. We want to make sure that when we send money out on a production, that we
Hmm.
know it's coming back with a minimum amount of return. And we're very comfortable with small to medium budget movies that we know will net us a certain return that we can count on, and we'll be fine just doing that. Meaning we don't need the movie to be a hit. The movie can even be a flop and we'll still make money. That's the
Hmm.
way we look at it. Now, if it is a hit, there's additional money that we can make, but our business model does not depend on that. So that's
Hmm.
the boring side. So to give you kind of an idea of the things that we do to ensure that we have safeguards in place for the returns and we protect the downside, when a production company comes to us to get funded for a production, the number one thing I look at is this thing has to be pre-sold. And part of that is pre-production has to be done already. So
Hmm.
they've done all the things that they need to do. Once we sign off on it, they're ready to start principal photography, when they start
Hmm.
shooting. So number one, it has to be pre-sold. So that means it's either a distributor, a streaming platform, whoever it is that's going to be the customer. We have to have documentation that says, yes, I will purchase this production from you.
Hmm.
And the main criterion for us there is we need to make sure that whatever the amount that they pre-sell it for has to cover the production budget plus a profit. It's pre-sold, so it's very much de-risked at this point, but there's still other risks. So the second thing is we require our production companies that are affiliated with us to be done with principal photography and have this thing out the door post-production within 6 months. We're not interested in big movies
Like
that take 3
big
years to
budget
produce.
period
Yeah.
dramas. Got it.
It's not necessary because, again, we want to make this boring. That means if they're delivering within 6 months, things have to be on time, things have to stay on budget. And again, famously in the movie industry, those things can kind of,
Hmm.
crawl away. So for us to be able to mitigate this, we require the production to be bonded.
Hmm.
So there are film bonding companies out there, and these bonding companies are essentially an insurance company in
Hmm.
some ways. It's not quite an insurance company because they're way more involved. But what a bonding company does is they'll look at the movie budget, and it's usually a couple of points of the budget that they get for this, but they will actually guarantee on-time delivery and on budget. If the bonding company looks at the production and says, who's the talent that you have attached to this?
Hmm.
What's
Hmm.
the schedule? What are the locations that you have? They look at the whole thing. If they
Hmm.
won't bond it, well, guess what? We're not going to
We won't
underwrite it, right?
finance it.
But if
Got
they
it.
bond it, that means that they are now checking on the production every day. They're making sure this thing stays on time and on budget because they don't want to be on the hook for the money if it gets off schedule.
But has it
So
happened before that a bonded company has to be called in to
to complete
to
a movie,
complete a movie? Yeah.
yes, it has happened before. That's why it's actually called a completion bond. Yep.
Ah.
And big directors for big budget movies, a lot of them will not work on a bonded production because they don't like what they consider the constraints. But we want to protect the investors. So we want
Yeah.
to make sure that when that 6 months is up, that they have that movie delivered and that we get the money back and can send it back out on another production. There's some other things that we do in addition to those, but these are the kind of the big ones. And then from the other side of it, we have a third-party administrator and a third-party auditor that does an annual audit in addition to the quarterly ones that the administrator does. So it's very transparent, very open, so everybody knows what's going on. We're not in the entertainment industry, right? We use it as a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's called a film fund, really what we are is a merchant bank. We're a very specialized merchant bank that uses an industry's peculiarities and quirks in a way that allows us to protect the downside. And we take this exciting thing and make it boring.
Very good. Now, so I do have some questions that came to me while I was having these conversations with a few family businesses. But for my own information, are you also seeing an impact in the industry when it comes to AI's inclusion into the workflow? Is it impacting your financing in any way or form? Cost has gone down, efficiency has gone up, but at the same time, this is my perception, I'm not from the industry, that because you have AI, now you have unemployment, but at the same time, AI cannot do everything. You still need humans. So help me understand the balance of
Yeah.
AI with respect to your investments.
When we are submitted a budget, as long as we have the returns, we can pull the trigger on it. What I can tell you from an industry
Got it.
perspective on AI is a tool. And so what you do with the tool is you give it to your team and they become more productive. You don't fire your team and then you're left with a bunch of tools.
Yeah, yeah.
What you're going to see is AI be able to leverage things to allow people to spend more time on creativity and do less busy work.
Got it.
And we're really in the nascent stages of all this right
Mhm.
now, kind of like 1998 on the internet, right? Like early
Yeah.
days. What'll happen is you'll have an AI agent that can hook into, let's say you're working in Maya or Cinema 4D, like a 3D package. And instead of you tediously going in and rigging up all your characters and doing the lighting and everything else, you can just say, here's a sketch of this character, model it up for me, make some adjustments, and then you go in and tweak it. You say, I want to animate it doing this. And instead of you painstakingly doing all that by hand, you can at least get a really rough animation that's close, and then you can tweak it. So all of these things that could save you hours and days of time, you're still being creative. You're still doing the thing that you were already doing, but now you're not spending hours on texturing, and all of that stuff is being done by the AI. So I think in that case, great. You can have better output faster, and you as a creative person don't have to spend your time on things that are frankly the boring, tedious parts of the work. There's always going to be a market for actual humans, because as humans, we want to interact with and see content from other humans.
Very good. We have a quick fire round. Question number one. If a movie underperforms, then how do you protect and preserve the capital of the investor?
Sure. When a movie underperforms, it's already been purchased by either the distributor or the OTT streamer. When a package is submitted to us, I get it from the production company. And so the package will include the script, the top line cast. It'll include which company is doing the bonding. It'll include the customer that's buying this thing with the agreement that this thing is going to be purchased, and then a line item budget. And so we'll look at the budget. The budget will actually include our finance fee. Typically, our fund will have a 10% finance fee, and that's baked into the budget. So if a production says we've got a $10 million budget, when we send it out, $1 million is already held back. We're basically instantly in profit the minute the funds go out. So that's one level. Then the price that they're selling it for is going to be more than 10 million, obviously on a $10 million budget. Then what happens is once the film is delivered within that 6-month window, we get the first thing that happens when the funds come back is the fund gets its principal amount. So in this case, it would be the 10 million because it's the 9 plus the 10% finance fee. Then the remainder, the profit, that gets split with the production company. And then there's rebates. Most jurisdictions have these. You'll usually see at the end of movie credits, this was filmed in New Mexico. And what that means is they got a rebate. And as a matter of fact, New Mexico has rebates anywhere from 25 to 40% on your production budget.
I see a lot of Atlanta.
Yeah, depending on how much of it you do in that state and using people from the state. And so just about every jurisdiction has them. Some are better than others. So what happens is that money also comes back in at that point and is also split between the fund and the production company. So those are the two avenues of income in addition to getting the principal
Reservation.
back with the finance fee. There is other additional income that can come back in. Of course, if the movie doesn't do well at all, in that case, that's all we got. But it's great. We didn't lose money. And what's nice too about the 6-month time period is the dollars work twice a year. But if the movie does do well, or let's say that there is a merchandising deal, or let's say a streaming platform purchased it for Asia and Europe. Well, in that case, maybe they say that did really great. We want now the rights for North and South America. Great. So now this is extra income that we didn't initially count on. Those are all potential upsides, but we don't count on those for our returns. We obviously hope that a lot of these films will do well, but we're not dependent on them doing well.
So one of the questions that I received, what happens if the distributor like Netflix, Amazon, or Hulu, I don't know if this particular fund also invests in a series and drama, so you can answer that. But what happens if these distributors delay the payment? In that case, what happens?
But we do actually get insurance for that too. We'll get an insurance policy. That's one of our requirements on the on-time payment. If it's a 30-day delay, it's not the end of the world because a lot of times the productions will actually be done slightly before 6 months is out. So we have a little bit of room for some slippage there. But if it starts getting really long or really ridiculous, you can actually take out insurance against that too. That one I didn't mention earlier because that insurance policy is for something that typically won't happen because we're dealing with big companies.
Got it.
Right.
So follow-on question is, so what does completion bond cover and what does it not cover?
The completion bond really covers the movie being done on time and on budget.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Is there a situation where a bonding company refused to pay the money?
They have a legal obligation because their obligation is so narrow. There's no situation.
There's no wiggle room.
Right. In most cases, it does kind of work like insurance for them because they will check on the production and make sure it stays on time and on budget. But most times they don't have to step in. So then it's, I'm not going to say easy money because they do have to check up on it. But for them, it becomes work. If they're 2 months in and they see, oh, this is off the rails, they'll step in. It has happened in the past. And they basically said, all right, we're going to get this thing out the door.
Now, shifting gears and from an investor perspective, say someone puts the money in, they're excited. First of all, talk to me about what type of transparency will that investor receive? Is there quarterly reporting? Will you be sending pictures from the set? Like, how does it work? How will the investor know that his or her money is doing what it should do?
Sure. We have a third-party administrator. Any member of the fund can pick up the phone, give them a call, shoot them an email. That's one of the reasons why we got a third-party administrator with a good reputation because their platform for the administrator actually has a very nice interface. You can log in. There are quarterly reports in there. That's on one side. But you were asking about the production side. We don't make movies, but we do fund them. And so we have good relationships with the production companies and insights. And so that's really
it's like a bank. Bank will give you mortgage, but they won't come in and take pictures of your house and send it to their shareholders, right?
Yeah.
They're in the business of financing.
Correct. We do have some perks in that regard because if an investor in the fund says, I got a nephew that would really love to learn how movies are made and would love to be maybe a production assistant on a set, they can shoot me an email because obviously I'm in touch with the production companies. I can see what's on the schedule, or they might say, hey, I'd love to be an extra in a movie. Because we have those relationships, we can do that. The other thing too is if somebody says, I'd love to have a producer credit, we can make that happen. We're not in the entertainment business, but we're connected enough that we also understand why people like the industry and the parts of it that they're excited about. And so we want to be able to accommodate that.
Well, valuable perks, especially if you're a parent and if you have a teenager who's interested in media. This is an incredible perk or access that you have. One more question from the production side. So you only finance movies, or are you into TV shows as well, like web series and docudramas or documentaries?
So there are documentary movies, and some of those can actually do well. As long as they meet our criteria, we're fine with that. We haven't really looked at all at serialization of anything, mainly because it's a different animal. We like keeping it very simple. We're not philosophically opposed to a series, but it would probably be more like maybe a movie trilogy, but doing a TV show, that's a whole different animal. We can do what we want to do. We're just making movies. And because our fund is boutique, it's a small fund. The typical movie budget that we're looking at is between 5 and 20 million, somewhere in there.
Good. I was speaking with our common friend, and first thing that came into my mind, like I can park some capital into this, and then I can talk to some other family members as well. But then he clearly told me it is not for U.S. Person.
Right.
Completely understand. But on the other side, when it comes to the investment or the financing side, are you open to financing movies that are outside of Hollywood?
Yes, absolutely. For us, it is not a matter of where,
Mm-hmm.
it's a matter of does it meet the criteria. When we're talking about the streaming services and the big studios, those are for the most part US based. I know there's a big film industry in India, but that's kind of its own self-contained bubble ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And they do very well because they have a lot of population, and a lot of people love going to the movies there, which is great.
Yeah.
We have no objection to being in that market, but for us, it's really a matter of do the numbers make sense? So outside of that, yeah, we don't care what jurisdiction it's sold, but hopefully they have a good rebate.
Well, Hans, thank you so much for your time. I'm glad we had this conversation.
Yeah,
I'm excited. Three things that stood out to me while having conversation with you. Number one, capital preservation in today's day and
yeah,
time is obviously paramount for a lot of investors, geopolitics and just the overall environment in the economy. That is understood. The second aspect is the distance between the actual asset or the activity and the person who is actually supervising it or managing the outcome is greatly differentiated. So this is the movie company creating whatever they create, and they know best. And on your side, you have your own personal expertise and experience, and on top of it, you have a fund manager as well from a compliance point of view. And the third aspect, I'm a strong believer that movies are stories that needs to be told so that we have a better environment, better society, we create jobs. There is a socioeconomic impact, but also there is a societal impact when it comes to behaviors, the way we react to certain themes in the environment. That is paramount in today's day and age, especially when we are so divided. And movies, in many cases, when I speak with family businesses, there's always a social aspect attached to it, a messaging that is attached to that. People feel aligned to those stories. They find themselves in those stories. It's a very strong medium to do social good. And thus, a lot of family offices and family businesses have now created donor advised funds that are actually putting money into these ventures from an impact point
yeah,
of view. So I'm glad that we had this
yeah.
conversation. I'm looking forward to having another version of this conversation once we have some more traction. And I know that you are in conversation with quite a few family businesses globally. I wish you all the best, and looking forward to seeing you again.
Appreciate it.